Exploring the Source with Culinary Seasons interviews Midori Uehara, owner of Mido'd Miso. Miso making is a two-step process. The first step is to make koji by inoculating rice with Aspergillus Oryzae, otherwise known as koji fungus. Koji is a vital part in the making of miso, as well as soy sauce, rice vinegar, mirin, and sake. Let's jump into the process of making koji and miso with Midori of Mido'd Miso.
So rice is soaked up over 24 hours. And how you can tell the rice is ready to be steamed is you take a grain and then within two fingers, you just grind them and then it will turn into rice flour, like rice powder thing. You can tell it's ready when it breaks down that easily.
And that's after you soaked it for the 24 hours?
Yes.
Nice.
It took me quite a while to figure out like how long I need to steam the rice in this steamer because, different equipment makes a different,
Definitely. I in my mind, I imagined you using a rice cooker, not a steamer, but a steamer makes sense.
Yeah. So if you use the rice cooker, like what I said, that rice gets too mushy because it soaks up in the water. So to cook the rice perfectly, which is outside is dry, but the inside is thoroughly cooked and keep the moisture, you need to use the steamer.
Nice.
Yeah. And I always check how the rice get cooked. The rice can't be too moist or too sticky, but it has to be cooked thoroughly, which you make when you squeeze into palm, it makes like little mochi. So the rice it's cooked, but you can see the grains are not like too mushy.
They're not too mushy, but they're cooked enough to be able to squeeze.
So this is good. ちょっと濡れ目かもしれないこれ。
The process of inoculating rice is a 3-day process which starts with soaking the rice, then steaming the rice, and now the inoculation process.
If the rice gets too dry on the process of mixing it, then koji rice doesn't have enough moisture to grow forward into the rice. So even though we want it drier outside, we want to keep the moisture inside of the grain.
And you said 45 degrees Celsius to cool it down?
Yeah, 42 Celsius. Have you heard about koji before?
I have heard of koji, but prior to talking to you, I wasn't that familiar with it. So read up on it and learned more about it. Cooling the rice to below 42 degrees Celsius is critical because it is the ideal temperature for the koji fungus to grow. The spores you use, do you get them from, import them from Japan? You do?
Yeah.
Nice.
Technically, you can, like a sourdough, you can pass it on. But the thing is that it's most likely you will have other bacteria and microbes that's going to be, grown in.
Introduced to it by doing it yourself.
To make it safe and stable products, you really want to use the spores that's made by the spore companies. Okay. There are only about 10 spore companies in Japan, and all of them are family-owned companies.
Wow. Yeah.
And they're like 300 years old in the business in the family.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then when you do a batch of miso, you do this fresh every time, the koji every time.
Right. So you can make miso with, of course, dried koji or frozen koji, but the enzymes are the most active when it's fresh. Okay. So I want to make it into miso right away. So the third day when I have the koji came out of the chamber, that we straight make it into miso.
Okay.
This one's the spore, and then the brown rice flour.
Okay.
Yeah, by adding the rice flour, it inoculates the spreads better.
And do you try to use the same spores, same company all the time?
I've tried a couple other companies in the past, and then there are so many types of koji spores, and they have different characteristic like we are, and how they play, how they are suited for the environment are so different, and it's very interesting. But there's so many, so I haven't played enough, but I did try a few different companies. But definitely this spores, I like it. It's most in a way it's easy, and in a way it's really stable that I feel. And it's a balance of the umami and amami, which is a sweetness. So I like this spore makes our products.
Yeah.
Definitely. So when we inoculate the koji spores, we are trying to drop the koji straight onto the rice. And each grain should get each spores. Because once it started germinating, or it doesn't germinate, like the grain can't pass the spores.
Okay.
So we try to get each grain gets the one spores.
Gotcha.
So we sprinkle all over first time, and then we thoroughly mix. And then we'll do the repeat 3 times that to make sure that each grain gets the spores.
So then you're putting that same amount each time,
Mhm.
every time you mix. Nice.
Mm-hmm. And then we try to turn off the fan when we drop the spores, because they're so light that they can get blown.
Obviously, different spores change the koji.
Mm-hmm.
Also, is it changing the miso?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. So some kojis are good at cutting the proteins rather than turning the carbohydrate into the sugar. So what types of miso are you looking for to make it, or what kind of soy? The koji is used for making soy sauce, sake, mirin, rice vinegars, miso, amazake. So there's so many products. Japanese condiments are made with koji. So without koji, there's no Japanese food culture exists.
The way we know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Japan, it's actually a national fungus. Koji is
National fungus.
Yeah,
Nice.
it is announced as national fungus in Japan.
Well, it's important.
It is
It's
very important. Yes. Yeah. So rice, the koji is originally found on the rice grains. It's in Japan that it's a harvest time for the rice. And when the rice grains started, like, what do you call, like,
Kind of flop over.
yeah, flop over, the heading is a little bit heavier with the rice. Some of the rice grains have the molds, and that's how they cultivated the koji spore. But of course, there's different bacteria mixed in it, so it's domesticated for a long time, like over thousands of years ago.
I wonder if that's how they originally found out about it, is that the rice had mold and they processed it and then it sat,
Right?
and then they figured it out.
Yeah, it is amazing, like how long ago they decided to try it out, or how it happened, and then just people still keeps making and eating and keeps making and eating and just repeated.
Yeah.
It's still going on.
Pretty amazing.
It is amazing. In Japan, so that there's only like about 10 spore companies, and of course all the miso makers, tamari makers, they have their own spores that they keep on generations and generations. So their rule for the company is, when the fire happens, the first thing that you have to bring with you is the spore. You have to evacuate with the spore, otherwise the whole company's legacy is gone.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the taste of the company. Yeah, by adding the rice flour, that makes it that gives them the little weight to drop onto the rice, and also the brown rice has more nutrition that gives them to germinate and grow better. So now the koji rice to be is going to their bed. They're going to be wrapped up in a warm cloth. So first 12 hours, they don't really need oxygen. They just need the moisture to germinate. So when we put the rice into the tray. We let them pack in pretty good.
And then the second day you're folding it how many times did you say?
3 times.
3 times.
We'll mix 3 times and giving them oxygen.
And
It's really fascinating and interesting to see just regular rice that in a couple of days, what you would see is, it's a koji rice.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and I never get tired of doing this.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it comes out.
And you can grow the koji not just on the rice. You can grow on the beans. You can grow on the barley, which is typically 3 types of different koji. It's made in Japan is rice, soybeans, or barley. And so when you make the miso with the rice koji, we don't really say it's a rice koji miso, but when we say miso, it's typically made with rice koji. And then we say red miso, it's most of the time, or half the time, it's made with soybean koji. So the koji is grown on the soybean, and they don't add any rice or barley. And that tends to be usually a red miso. Or the rice koji miso, if it can get fermented a long time, the color changes as the time passes. So it's called red miso when it's dark. And the barley koji is grown on the barley.
And now, are there different regions in Japan that use different or produce different types?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm from southern part of Japan, and she's from center of Japan, Osaka, and typically her region uses mostly rice koji and make miso into it. Where I'm from, southern part, half of rice koji and half of barley koji. Typically, southern part of Japan have a lot of sweeter taste. So barley makes much more sweeter miso. And usually because of the warmer climate, it's shorter ferment miso. And then you go northern part, it's usually longer ferment miso with more salt in it, and usually darker. The southern part is lighter.
Is it also based on where they grow? Like, is barley grown south, and that's why they do that? Okay.
Yeah. In Kyushu, where I'm from, the southern part of Ireland, they used to grow barley better than rice. Probably there was the time of the era that they, did better with barley.
They pack the rice into pans and meticulously fold the cloth over the rice. From there, the pans will go into the temperature-controlled proof box to allow the koji spores to grow. Midori uses a bread proofer to maintain the ideal humidity and temperature to achieve the best koji results possible. The next day, when they cook the beans for miso, they will fluff the rice 3 times throughout the day. By fluffing the rice, it allows oxygen to get to the koji spores to allow them to grow. 2 days later, I meet back up with Midori to see what koji growth she achieved on the rice, and to learn the process of making miso. And just to recap, this is after yesterday you fluffed it 4 times.
Yesterday we did it 3 times.
3 times.
Morning, afternoon, and evening. 3 times. We check the temperature, check the conditions, give them oxygen. They go over 45 degrees Celsius, they get weak and some of them die. So I want to keep it under 45 Celsius. Otherwise, I don't get the enough enzymes that I'm trying to aim to have it for the miso making. So it's really warm right now. We feel a little bit fever, 39 to 40 degrees Celsius. And then you can see the koji's caked right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the spores are trying to connect it together. So you can see the white fluff.
So it's a mold basically.
That's right. It's a fungus. It's
a fungus.
Yeah.
That's clumping together.
The koji process is usually 3 days, 48 hours since inoculation. Yeah, we always get kind of excited to see
the cake. Oh yeah,
cake
and some good fungus growth on there all along the side here.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty neat. It shows you it's growing.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And that you've got some good growth on that, and
that's
to have it on the outside.
Yeah. But of course, we don't really need the fluffiness. We just get excited to see it.
Well, that's some good bacteria growth.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm aiming is having the koji spores grown in towards the grain, inside of the grains. That's what we actually need to get the enzymes. They're producing the enzymes inside of the rice grain.
And at this point, you're just looking to break apart all the grains.
Right. I'm trying to break it up, getting ready to be processed for miso. And then also at the same time giving them like oxygen and just cool it down, because just letting them know that's it. You don't need to grow the spores anymore. Have you tasted a koji before?
No.
I'll give you a little chunk. You can smell it and then you can taste it.
A little funky smell.
Uh-huh. Can you smell the sweetness to it?
Yeah, definitely.
We express as a cooked chestnut in
The
Japan.
smell of
Yeah,
it?
smell of
Okay,
it.
yeah. Yeah, I can see that, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And the texture is soft, or
Mhm.
softer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard like rice would be.
Mm-hmm.
The texture, I'd almost say it's like, kind of like popcorn.
Really?
Well, kind of.
Uh-huh.
I mean, a little chewy.
Uh-huh.
The flavor is definitely sweet.
Mm-hmm. Sweet, yes.
It's a nice flavor.
Good.
The aftertaste
Yeah.
is very nice.
Yeah, so it's a sweet. It's because of the enzyme breaks down the starches into simple sugar. So sometimes my miso, especially chickpea miso, is sweeter just naturally because of this rice koji, and the chickpea is naturally sweet. So sometimes people ask me, do you put any sweetener in here?
No, I mean, as I've been chewing on it and savoring it, it's definitely sweet. I mean,
Yeah.
my mouth is very sweet from
Right.
that koji.
Yeah. Once koji is done, the miso itself is pretty simple ingredients, just beans, koji, and salt.
Yeah.
But this is my 2023, and then I started 2021. So this is gonna be my third year. I think. So everything is getting better and better, but also just figuring it out. Each batch of koji is a little bit different, so I try to mix them.
So you're making your flavor consistent as much as possible.
Right.
Beyond seeing the process and knowing the ingredients, Midori keeps her recipes secret.
I used to actually taught miso making class before this business.
Did you?
Yeah, and then as it goes into the pandemic, I couldn't teach a class, but I couldn't do that with the pandemic. So how can I share this healthy food that I believe in, that I grew up with?
Yeah.
And then, well, if I make a bunch of them, then I can share with the community.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started my business.
So this miso you're making today is a year fermentation?
Most likely, yeah.
Okay.
The miso has to sit. My miso is typically more than a year old.
You basically don't want any air in that.
Yeah, right. So you can either call it patience, or it can be just forgettable.
It's a point in your process with your business. It's a plan. Mido'd Miso can be found throughout Southern Oregon growers markets and grocery stores, and at midosmiso.com. A big thank you goes out to Midori and her crew for letting me see behind the scenes of her operation, teaching us about making koji and miso. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe Culinary Seasons at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, and watch Exploring the Source interviews at culinaryseasons.com. Thanks a lot.